for 3 hot dogs, 3 bags of chips.
Seconds on silence. All right. What's going on, guys? Live right now. Breakdown. Entering the Retro Revolution realm, as well as the Retro Revolution cast going on our live stream right now. Check it in, guys. What's up? TC Panda, Retro.
What up? What up?
Grizzly B1T, the Deuce, and special guest in the house hanging out with us, Jay Bartlett from
Mr. Nintendo Quest. What's up, Jay? Wow.
It's a pleasure to be here, guys. Thanks a lot for the invite. Looking forward to it.
Hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah.
All right, so real quickly, before we get into a huge Q&A and a long show, Jay, just to let you know, because there's a lot to talk to you about, I want to show people what Nintendo Quest is. It's an excellent documentary that was formed between you as well as Rob McCallum, I believe, is the other person that did this. And just want to jump over to our retro television real quickly just to show you what it was all about. So if you can, give us a second, and we're going to move it over to our other screen and then come back to us and have that huge conversation. And here we go.
It started with a simple concept. One man, 30 days, buy all the Nintendo games without using the internet in any way. Boom.
There's no cheat codes, there's no game G, there's no survive. Some way, somehow, you'll succeed at what he wants to do with this.
This journey is going to be incredible. Literally go across the country.
I don't think you got any audio.
No, I hear it fine over here.
Star Wars,
okay.
Rock and roll video games.
And the big boss doesn't beat that, he loses a chance at a dream.
I think the collecting of the games, I think will be
the audio is very low, Brian.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. They can hear us as well. Just unfortunately, guys, I don't know why the audio is actually low. I have it at full blast, to be honest with you. With the trailer and all that coming over here. So, maybe it's just here on Facebook.
Why it was Nintendo. Why did we pick Nintendo?
His graphics look good.
Yeah.
Because I think that's
looks great.
Everyone can relate to. Everyone loves the NES. For a period of time there, Nintendo was
the audio is very low, Brian.
Yeah, you can hear the echo. That's just because of the way it goes.
Sorry, I had the volume up there. We had some stars donated as well. I'm not sure by who, but
feedback and noob.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, guys, sorry about the low volume on the audio. But I guess that's, also it's coming from the YouTubing itself, so.
It's all good, man. Don't even worry about it.
All right. Well, anyway, that's pretty much what the Nintendo Quest is all about. So, that's the trailer base. What do we got?
Right.
20 seconds. Let's go back to our page. Let's get involved here, and let's really get the real source of information.
So why don't we just say, Jay? Why don't you tell us what Nintendo Quest is and what Nintendo Quest was to you? How about that? Why don't we open up with that? Because there's no better person, like Brian just said, to explain it to us than the creator himself.
Well, I'm just the guy in it. The creator is Rob McCallum. We both
Right.
wrote the concept together, but he's the filmmaker. And he came to me and he said he wanted to do a documentary basically on collecting. And so the original concept was very different. It was going to follow three collectors around doing their, pickups and all that kind of stuff. And it just it was boring to us. We needed something more, so we decided to cut out the other two guys, which we hadn't cast at all. It was just we cut them out, and then he's like, "Okay, what do you think about getting all the NES games?" And I laughed at him, right? I'm like, yeah, it's hilarious. He's like, no, seriously. He's like, we can do this. If you go after the NES list, we'll kind of narrow it down a bit. So it'll be just the retail carts that were available in North America.
Right.
So we did some research, and it was doable. It was doable. I mean, it is very expensive. I'm not going to lie about that. It's, as you guys know, right? It's
Right.
ridiculous. And this was like 4 years ago. So, and I said, sure. He's like, okay, but, I was talking to our producer, Jordan, and he said, what if we come up with a concept of 30 days? And I'm like, you're going to have to give me a couple days on this one, man. And I got off the phone with him and I sat there and I was like, 30 days, like that's ridiculous, right? Because
right.
jobs and real lives and all that kind of thing. And I knew if I said yes to it, I would have to finish it or I would just die in shame, right? I have to complete what I started. So eventually that's how the concept came to be.
Cool, really cool. I can tell you myself, I tried collecting a complete collection, complete in box, and I was at about 350. And watching the documentary, I've watched it from beginning to end. It was awesome. I mean, it was almost like, as a collector, seeing you do that was just like, oh, it was just insane, because it's taken me years and years and years to get not even halfway there, and to see you do it in such a short span, I mean, it's crazy. It must have been just an absolutely unforgettable feeling and experience as a collector, because I understand the highs and lows. Believe me, as you know, if you guys have seen the documentary, there's parts where Rob goes through, highs and lows. There's great parts of the pickups, and then there's parts where you get screwed. And I've dealt with that in collecting so many times, and
yeah, I mean, there was not as much of that as you would have thought. I remember there was a flea market in Detroit where the guy was a real prick, and he was just being a dick, right? And we didn't make a deal there, but other than that, most people, there's a few things that didn't make the film, but most people were really willing to help, especially when it started to take off across social media, where we were going and where the route was. Then we had people reaching out to us, hey, come see my collection. I have this and I have that. So it kind of snowballed from there.
Awesome.
Real quick, guys, we have the director, Rob McCallum, actually live in the chat. I don't know if we can read some comments from the chat, Brian, if we got that in front of you.
Yeah, actually, we can see it live on the screen as well.
Awesome.
Rob McCallum does say, yep, 30 days, no online purchases. I remember also reading that you couldn't have any friends' helps, and what else was there? I think there was like 3 or 4 major rules I remember from seeing the that snippet of the movie.
Yeah, so basically when Rob came to me and he said, half the fun about you and I going out getting these games was the journey to do so. And if I may tell a short story about our first pickup video, which was in May 2000 when we were going to get Perfect Dark on 64.
Sweet.
And
Good game.
still one of my favorite games. And
hell yeah. The better version of GoldenEye. The better version.
Yeah. Rob shot me getting this at a local EB Games. And people were looking at us like we were nuts, walking through the mall with a video camera. And I was describing to Rob why I was so excited about this. And people were just looking at us like we're nuts. It's like, who's going to watch this? Nobody wants to watch this. But you know what? We did. I mean, the internet was at the infancy, right? So you didn't really upload videos like that back then. But we still have it. I think he shared it a couple years ago. But That was our very first one. But anyway,
That's
it's half the fun was actually us going to the game store and what we were going to find, right, with your buddy.
Mhm.
Mm.
The first question I want to ask is that the experiences of the game stores. Like, what was your favorite game store that you actually walked into amongst all the places that you got to see over during the Nintendo Quest?
Good question.
The titles are a little foggy. There was a chain. I'm probably gonna screw it up. There's a chain in Pittsburgh, I think, called Game Over.
Okay.
I think. Sorry guys if I'm wrong on that one.
That's all right. It's okay.
But they had a chain, kind of like almost like GameStop down there, but it's all retro, right? And the first one we went to, I think there's 5 locations in Pittsburgh, and the district manager of the stores was there, and we kind of had to get him to sign off on the filming and all that. And he was so cool, man. He actually emailed the other stores and said, hey, this guy is going around, make sure you treat him good, kind of thing. So those guys were really cool. And there's a lot of cool flea markets in Texas as well. Like a lot of stuff down there, man.
Texas is very cool. Very cool. Lots of retro in Texas, that's for sure.
Yeah. Big,
Oh, yeah, dude, yeah.
big community down there in Texas and whatnot.
Mm.
So besides the fact of that, obviously, I actually don't want to spoil anything for the movie. That's for people to check out. I found this out today. It kicked me in the ass for this one. I didn't realize the movie was on Amazon Prime. So that was the way I actually got to see it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I get to watch it now, So
Yeah, it is.
the experience of going across the country itself, how was that? What was it like, did you pack an extra pair of underwear? Did you, was it hot and cold? What was that? What was that experience like going across the country just to do this?
A good one.
Life-changing. It really was. I mean, if you watch the person I am at the beginning and the person I transform into at the end, I was a guy who was very much a homebody, right? I didn't like to travel too much. I mean, I've been to Detroit and a little bit in the States, and after we were doing this, it was so fun and so intense that, I mean, I didn't want it to stop. And when the filming was finally concluded, it was actually really depressing because it was like, I wish we could just do this for a living, man. This is cool, right?
That would be cool.
Like the end of a filming, yeah.
Well, hey, there's a bunch of other systems still left to do. I mean,
I have to say that's one of my favorite transformations to see in the film. Isn't necessarily, just the video games or anything like that. It's seeing you go to this really streetwise, very savvy collector that can walk into a store and make a deal and know the right price to pay for some, a retro game and things like that. That was from the beginning to the end. You could see this huge transformation.
Yeah, and I was really nervous about haggling. I mean, in all reality, I've been a collector of many things since I was old enough to work, right? So, but haggling's a different story. I was very much uncomfortable with that. And the rejection that comes along with that and how to deal with it. So after about 4 or 5 stores, I just started to kind of take more control and not really care because I learned to deal with, if a game, Bubble Bobble 2 is $310 and I say, how about 150? They're like, what are you, crazy, kid? Kind of thing. And I'd be like, I'm not crazy, man. Do you want to sell it or not? Then I started to get really good at kind of coming back at it. So
not bad.
That was one thing I actually wanted to ask because you even kind of mentioned it a little bit in the film. Was the haggling something that like all of a sudden something clicked and you just got it, or do you feel like you kind of eased into that over time and got more comfortable with it? Because that's something that a lot of people are not comfortable with for the same reasons that you're explaining there.
I mean, I'm better at it now. I don't think. Maybe some people can get comfortable with it. I don't think I ever will. So the quest itself, my part was 30 days. But what people don't see behind the cameras is that I have a full-time job. So it really ironed out to about 19 days that we were shooting me. So it wasn't even really 30 days. You know what I mean? I had 30 days to do it, but I could only take so much vacation from work.
Of course.
We
Yeah.
travel so far, and you know, I have a house, I have just a dog at the time, and things like that. So I had to really plan ahead. Yeah.
Well, I noticed Vincent Sia, one of our friends from Game AKO, hanging out in here. He says haggling is an art form, and you need to have a lot of balls in haggling. I totally agree with that, because it's either you're going to get it or they're going to just...
And Jay, just to let you know, they're a retro gaming group from the Philippines. Very large retro gaming group from the Philippines. Yeah, so they're a big fan as well.
That's great. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in, man. I'm really honored. That's really cool.
Harvey Ramos with 95 stars. Harvey Ramos, the king of stars.
I want to throw a little off-topic question at you, Jay. I'm a Star Wars collector myself, and
boy, yeah.
You're you know, a guru, or you know, as far as the collectors go, you know, you're very well thought of in the community. How is your Star Wars collection looking these days? Are you still in the game? I know that you're big into the cosplay scene. I'm a fan of your work on that side. Can we maybe talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, cosplay.
I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and you know, Star Wars is retro to me. So anytime we can bring up Star Wars on Retro Revolution, I'm always game for that.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah. So after we shot the film and it was ready to go, we decided to tour the film. So we toured it across North America. And it was before The Force Awakens came out. It was 2015 before it came out. And I remember seeing that first teaser trailer, like everyone did, where there was no talking and it was just, you know, a static image of each of the characters. And you see the back end of Kylo Ren with that almost barbarian type Old Republic blade, right? And I just was completely in love with that character. I didn't even know what he looked like. I remember everyone thought it was Luke. Remember, everyone thought it was Luke.
Yep. I remember that.
But I knew that when I traveled across, you know, for the tour, I carried this Kylo Ren figure with me, and not since I was a kid bonding with Luke Skywalker did I find a connection with the character in Star Wars that much.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't call myself a cosplayer. I'm a Star Wars fan.
Right.
And it just made sense to me to just kind of take that next step and kind of build a life-size one, which was me, right? So I got it professionally made and tailored and all that, and it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And if you guys are Star Wars fans, I mean, you guys can look up Jay. I mean, you can find a lot of Star Wars stuff, you know, just by simple Google, his Facebook, I'm sure. Now, I remember that you were working on or you were in talks of working on a documentary, something Star Wars related. Am I?
Yeah, it was about a year ago where Rob and I came up with the concept, because I still work with a charity called the Children's Health Foundation here in Canada.
Very cool. Very cool.
That's for sick kids, obviously, right? Purchase equipment and whatever they need, basically. And so all the events that we did, all the proceeds we got, we would donate to Children's Health Foundation. So I thought, hey, so let's take the collecting aspect, make it a Star Wars paint job. I'll go around and collect Star Wars merchandise. Everything that we collect, we will auction off at the end at a Comic-Con. All the proceeds will go to Children's Health Foundation. So I don't keep anything.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
We crowdfunded it, and it was just shy, so we didn't make it. And Rob and I learned that when we crowdfunded Nintendo Quest, it's a very different world. It's only been a few years, but now with Netflix taking over, you know, everyone wants their series now.
Right.
So you can shoot something and then crowdfund it to get distribution, no problem. But to say, hey, you know what, we're going to this is the product we're going to make. In 2 to 3 years, you'll get it. Most people now are like, no, I want it now.
Right.
So it was not funded, unfortunately.
Chris, what's up?
So, question, just to tie Star Wars into gaming, did you ever play Knights of the Old Republic, and which path did you go down? I'm curious.
Oh, good question.
Yeah, actually, Darth Revan is one of my favorite Star Wars characters. I have his mask. You can't see it. I have his mask on the wall. A full dark side, yeah. Especially after I found out that he was Darth Revan, which I will still say in gaming today is one of the best storylines ever. And I didn't have it ruined for me, right? It was a total surprise that you were the guy they were talking about the whole time. It was just like,
all right.
So wicked.
Last Star Wars question, and we'll get back to the Nintendo Quest. What are your thoughts on EA canceling the latest Star Wars game that was due to drop?
EA.
EA and Activision are everything that's wrong with the gaming industry.
Yes, thank you, Lord.
true.
Yes,
Amen.
very true. Amen.
Now, you have companies that are doing it right, like Epic Games. Say what you want about Fortnite. But in my opinion, that is the way to do a game. Here's the game for free. If you want this extra cosmetic stuff, you can pay for it. But you don't have to.
Right, right.
Why doesn't Activision just bring out the next Call of Duty and say, here, take it?
Right.
And do, like, little transactions if you want. I mean, I think the way Fortnite and Epic Games have structured the Battle Royale, they have turned the industry upside down.
Agreed, yeah.
I don't understand how EA can destroy Star Wars so badly. Like, it's embarrassing.
You're right. I have to agree. As much as I want to hold on to it because that's all we get is for the gaming, but you're absolutely right. They butcher it. I mean, it's terrible. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Robert,
You know,
go ahead.
if it's okay, I'm gonna actually continue just with one last Star Wars question.
okay, yeah, absolutely. Shoot.
Considering that you're a fan of the newer ones, you know, Kylo Ren and things like that.
Yeah.
Me and my buddies had this, you know, kind of fan theory about Episode 8 before it came out that Kylo Ren and Rey were going to switch sides, and Rey was going to go dark side, and Kylo Ren was going to find redemption. And I was actually kind of sad that the movie didn't turn out like that. Did you have any of those kind of fun theories like that before the movie came out?
We're getting deep now.
I know, right?
No, Jar Jar's behind it all. He's really the evil Sith Lord.
Oh boy. Good.
I think one of the greatest scenes in the whole saga is when Ren kills Snoke, and then the two of them realize they're about to get killed really quick by some pretty elite guards. So they work
Badass, dude,
together.
right.
That scene is so incredible.
It's crazy.
And then at the end they stop, and Rey thinks she has him. She's like, "Okay, come on, we got to get back to the fleet." And he's just kind of looking over his dead mentor, like, hey, it's really cool because you almost had that moment, right? And then it flips over where Ren's like, no, you join me. And she's like, don't do this, bud. Like, let's not do this. And then they go at it again. So we almost had that. I think it would have been cool. I think expectations need to be tapered because expectations are what's damaging the series, in my opinion.
Agreed. Right. Let the story be told.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Awesome.
Just to let you know, Jay, Rob is asking if Galaxy of Hope is officially dead, or have you guys found a workaround to go on a collecting mission for charity?
We actually, I can't say a whole lot. We actually start shooting this Sunday on the next thing, so that's all I can say right now.
Oh wow. All right. Sweet.
I will say my with the Children's Health Foundation is never done. Once you turn that way and you see how you're helping kids, you can't go back.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Please sign the non-disclaimer form here.
Right. Brian, so do we have any more clips that we want to show?
Yeah, we'll shoot one of the clips here. I believe this is the intro, one of the beginning parts of the movie that explains the quest itself. So let me jump over. We're going to show real quickly what it is, and then you guys can elaborate on it. So here we go. A little more retro television right now, coming on your screen. Let me pick this back a little bit, and I'll get it momentarily. Had a little fix before because it was on the YouTube version, that's why. All right, let's just hit it right now. Sound low again or no?
So let me tell you a little secret. That guy hunting those games, that's Jay. We've been friends for a really long time. And he's always dreamt of owning a complete NES collection. So I dared him to do it. And only gave him 30 days. And he couldn't use the internet in any way. Because as a collector, that's really cool to me. But as a filmmaker,
It's a little low, but it's doable.
Because following Jay around,
Not too shabby on my cell for check.
competitive gamers and personalities, and the other diehard collectors, and all of those people will get a a chance to weigh in on what makes the NES so resilient and amazingly
There's the man, Rob himself. There's Rob. There's Robbie.
Technology lasts 30 years. We never use phones, cars, or computers that long. So what makes the NES the exception to the rule? Well, we're gonna find out. But first, let's learn a little bit more about Jay. As clearly, he's a fan.
All right. So that is basically the intro, explaining what the.
Jay's been my best friend for more than 30 years.
Oh, wait a
There we
minute.
go. Oh, you want to see that part too? We can put that on. I don't want to give away the whole movie. I want people to actually. You guys
Hey,
make the film.
Yeah, only
Hey, Brian,
showcase the trailer.
Okay.
Yeah, that was part of the trailer. So
Mhm. All
Okay.
right. So basically, go ahead. So continue what you were saying. You guys.
yeah,
were
we don't
saying.
want to clip out a whole lot more, but
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, the movie is incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, guys.
It really is, and following you, Jay, I gotta say was a journey in and of itself. That was one of the things that really got me was the emotions of the whole movie. It wasn't just this challenge; it was watching you go through this whole experience yourself. I can't even imagine what it was like for you. Why don't you give us a picture of that? And you said you really only had about 19 days of actual going at it. What
Yeah.
was that like for you? I mean, what was your highest point, your lowest point, the biggest challenge that you hit?
The biggest challenge would have been midway through. I can't remember where we were. It's kind of a blur. We were in the Midwest somewhere, and we were in the mall, and this mall had a retro game store, which I couldn't believe, man. I mean, I don't know if that's common in the States for you guys to have retro game stores, but
Very little.
I saw Gilligan's Island, and I had it in my hand, and the store had a bunch of other cards. And I remember I told Rob to cut. Of course, he never does, right? Because it's so real. He wants the emotion. I took him in the outside of the store. I'm like, I'm scared here, man, because the money is going down. My money, right? And I'm like, I don't know if this is too high for this game. I started to doubt myself. Because it's like, do I pass up on Gilligan's Island, which is, it's kind of rare, but not really, right?
Uncommon.
On that and maybe find it down the road more for cheaper? Am I overpaying for this? So I really started to second guess myself on a lot of things halfway through. And the excitement of every day was great, but it's highs and lows because it was incredibly stressful. Like I said, I started this thing to finish it. So, yeah. I don't want to give away too much, but
Right. So I have a question for you. What was the hardest common game for you to find? So just a common game that you normally, you would think would be easy to find that you had trouble getting.
Donkey Kong.
Wow. The original card or the orange, the arcade?
No, the black box Donkey Kong.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, which is one of my favorites on the NES, and yeah, that was pretty tough. I found Donkey Kong 3 right away, which you figured it would have been the opposite, right? But,
Right. You would have thought that, right?
Donkey Kong 1, yeah. And it was funny that the game that I saw the most was Black Box Golf, and we joked like a little bit through the film that I was going to buy every Black Box Golf and we were going to make like a couch out of golf together, but yeah.
That would be pretty awesome.
It was dumb, so we didn't do that.
That would be kind of cool, actually. Somebody would pay for that, I'm sure,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There's always someone out there.
Right.
Ronan Rose has a question out there. It says, Jay, question. What game made you the most uneasy to haggle for?
It's shown in the film. A store called ANC Games in Toronto, and they had Bubble Bobble 2.
Yeah.
And you see it in the movie, and it's edited down, right, for time constraints, but the two brothers who ran it are just, they're great guys, but it was one of the early times where Bubble Bobble was like $300, right? Too. And I was really new at the haggling stuff, so trying to bring him down and trying to justify. He's like, well, why should I bring it down, kind of thing, and I'm just like, oh, and I'm thinking, I'm sweating, and there's cameras in my face, and I gotta look cool, right? So, but that was one of the first instances, and one of the toughest was that one. I got it. Yeah, they did bring it down, so those guys are awesome. Cheers.
Yeah, I think
Side
in the
note,
film
I've
you said
actually-
you were
I've
haggling
been-
with them for like an hour, wasn't
Right.
it?
Well, we went there twice. The second time I went there, I got the help of the producer who held my iPad with the app to keep track of all the games, and we were there for a good 3-4 hours almost.
Yeah.
Because this place had a basement just full to the ceiling of NES carts, and after a while, everything's like, honestly, it feels like Groundhog Day. It's like you pull out like F10 jet crap shit game, right? And you're looking at it, oh, I don't have this, right? And then go check it off. You get in the car and realize I bought 3 of them. I'm like, oh, frick. So a lot of them, I bought Tiger Heli actually 3 or 4 times as well. So
That's a good game, though.
yeah.
Not bad, not bad.
Any other questions in the chat?
Let me see what else we got down here. Everybody, Jay Renault checking in, saying TC mysterious, what's going on? Rob McCallan says, let's see.
What's on his coffee mug?
What's on his coffee mug?
Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
Ren.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was quick.
yeah.
All right. Just got to show it off. All right, there we go. Sorry.
All right, so let's just we'll kind of go a little off again. What is your favorite Nintendo game to play?
Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link is my favorite.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
wow! All
I knew I
right.
liked
Wow.
Hands down, the summer after we were done shooting, I remember that game when I was a kid scared me because it was so hard. I didn't understand the RPG system at the time as a kid. I didn't understand the numbers and the leveling and all that. So I wanted to make sure that I finished it. And I did. I finished it 3 times in the 1 week, and I just kept playing it obsessively. Then I was watching speed runs and getting obsessed with it. Yeah, it's my favorite.
That's awesome. I love that game. That
Sweet.
kind of reminds me of a question that I had here is that, and Rob actually says this in the movie, and I love Rob, love the film, but I wanted to punch him after saying this. He says, as we march toward the inevitable future of digital-only games,
Yeah.
thinking about what we're seeing now with the transition to digital versus physical copies of games, what do you think it is that we're going to be losing if we were to go to digital only, or why should that not happen?
Boys, this is it's funny you bring this up. One of my best friends and I were talking on the phone today about this very thing. To keep it a little shorter, we're losing humanity. One of our main senses is touching and feeling, and we were talking about music in this instance and how you buy like the new Foo Fighters record, right, or whatever. On iTunes, you don't really feel like you own it, but when you go and you buy that record, you have something tangible in your hand. You can look at it, you can smell it. For us freaks that like to smell like new controllers and comic books and stuff like that, right? You can lend it to your buddy. You can do whatever you want. There you go. So I think we're losing a human element where you don't really own anything in music anymore. You buy movies that you don't really own. I mean, if you guys bought a movie on iTunes lately, you can't even screenshot it anymore.
No.
You can't make
Right.
screenshots of it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So in short, yeah, just a big part of our humanity, and I think it's a real shame.
I think box art, man. Box art used to be half the. Hey, how many shitty Nintendo games did you buy because you saw the box and you're like, oh wow, this is gonna be great, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh my god, I bet my paper out. Good lord, I gotta go deliver papers for another 4 weeks to buy another game.
So to tie in the whole digital thing, it's ironic we're talking about that today. We today gone.
Yeah.
Unless you're hacking it,
Oh,
no more. So that ties
Oh,
into
yeah.
all of this.
You know, it's
Bad
funny.
day.
I thought the Wii store was gone a while ago. I know the Wii U's still going strong, but I thought the Wii Store was done, so that was news to me. But
You could add points with currency till the end of last year, and then today was the day they shut everything down. So like your Dr. Mario Online and your Final Fantasy, all that is gone without hacking, which they never released a physical copy of. So without people, the hacking community is going to be in essence a backup archival reason to have them around to keep those copies of those games so they don't go away.
But unlike Microsoft and Sony, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if you buy something on Nintendo digitally, you own it. Like, you don't have to be online to play it, correct?
Well, like your online games, like Dr. Mario Online. Honestly, I don't know. I've got to fire that up and see if that's the case because, I've been dealing with all kinds of personal things as of late. But yeah, I'll have to give that a run. I'm
pretty sure, like, whatever you got on your Wii is yours unless you, obliterate the hard drive, then you're kind of screwed. But that's the thing, too, right? It's like if your Wii gets damaged, if that system is no good anymore, all that money is gone. All those games are gone.
And you can't transfer them either. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with digital. Some games you can only get digital, and that's just the way it is. But I'll always be pushing physical, always.
Well, actually, a question in the chat from William Bill Blunt, Greenslade the Fourth. That's a name. Jay, what do you think of the NES and SNES classics, though?
They're great. I think those are really wonderful throwbacks, and it's really sparked an interest the last 3 years, or getting people back into retro gaming. It's really cool to see little kids wanting these classic systems, right? I think it's awesome, man. I think they're great.
Got another question also. Asia Sherman says, how can we mention Foo Fighters and not mention that Jay looks like Dave Grohl?
Elephant in the room. Someone had to ask it. I was thinking it.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about at all.
You've never heard that, right?
It's my girl, Isa.
Isa, sorry about that.
So another side question, because you're talking about how important physical is. What would you say percentage-wise that you own physical versus digital? Because I was talking with Deuce the other day about this, and currently between my wife and I, Kingdom Hearts 3 was our 300th game, and we've got 119 digital, which I was surprised by, and 181 physical. So where do you sit percentage-wise on that?
Like for PS4 and Xbox One?
Well, just like entirely, your whole collection. Like you get like 99% physical to 1% digital. I'm just curious where you lie.
The only game I could think of is my wife and I bought Majora's Mask on the Wii U just last night. And that's only because if you try and play it on the 64, your eyes bleed, right? So the one on the Wii U is nice and clear. So honestly, I don't buy a lot of digital at all. So
Amen, brother.
Yeah, I'm the type that I buy the digital, and then when they release the physical copy, I buy that one too. So I should probably just tattoo sucker up here.
Oh no, man, that's great. That's showing support for the companies too, which is awesome. Right?
One to play and one to collect in the shrink wrap, eh?
All right, so Jay, question for you.
Yes.
You did this quest. You got all these games. We're not going to say if you finished it or not. How many of the games did you actually play, or have you actually played yourself?
A good half of them.
Okay.
What's funny? It's having. I almost said it. Having a lot of them is great, but there's just some like you don't want to play, right? It's like anticipation, like
right,
right,
Dr. Jekyll,
right.
Dr. Jekyll. After something so grueling for a long time, I didn't want to really play NES games. I wasn't out of it. I just like, okay, I need to shelf these and take a break and step back and play some, PlayStation or something.
Now, another question. So, all the games you bought, did they all work?
Yes. To my knowledge, yeah. I'm a huge germaphobe, so there's a shot of me in my spare bedroom in the house I lived in at the time.
Clean them, I remember. Yeah.
I love that part.
There's one that had like, I'm pretty sure it's blood, guys, and I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what are you doing with your life? where you have blood on a Nintendo cart. Like,
Right.
is this a murder weapon at one point?
Hazmat suit going in there.
Right.
That's gross, man. Yeah.
All right, so you did a lot of you did a tour basically all over the country. You got to meet a ton of collectors, ton of YouTubers. Who had, in your opinion as a collector, the sickest collection? I think I know who you're gonna say, but maybe it'll surprise me. Who had the best collection as a collector now that made you say, "Holy shit," walking in?
It's funny seeing everyone's collection and how differently everybody likes to display their collection. I'll answer your question just one sec, but there was one guy, for instance, that had an old school like Al Capone safe that he had, all like Bonk's Adventure and all his games. They were kept in this safe, and you can't see through it. It was like cast iron or whatever the damn thing was. And that was how he displayed it. And then we went to another one where, the guy's walls are all glass with lights and the whole thing. So it was really interesting to see how different people display their collections. I got a lot of inspiration from seeing the different ways. That being said, Sid Bolton, who was Canada's top game collector, he's passed away last year. But Sid's collection was just amazing. It was his house. The bottom of his house was all games. It was huge. And my buddy now, Todd Curtis. Todd's near the end of the movie. But walking into his basement is like walking into an arcade. And
was that Sonic 22? What's his? Does he have a handle he goes by, or is it Todd? Who's the Sonic 22 guy or 32?
Oh, that's Barry.
Yeah. Barry's
in Texas. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Barry. That was on our sequel piece, the Power Tour, where we stopped at Barry's, and he's the #1 Sonic fan in the world. I'm not kidding you. In the world, man. He's got every Sonic anything ever. And he had it was almost like a half of an airplane hangar that was just games.
That's Barry Shank, right? Last name?
It escapes me right now. It escapes me the last.
So, Jay, when you were doing all these
Barry,
games
Brian.
collecting,
You know Barry is. We know Barry.
Okay.
What was your favorite thing to see, like sightseeing that you got to see while doing your games, if you had any time for that? What was like one of the things you were like, "Whoa, that's cool," that you would have not have seen otherwise?
Rob and I are big fans of the movie The Wizard, and we went and traveled to. Have you guys seen The Wizard?
Barry Evans. That's
yeah.
Barry Evans. Okay.
So there's a place near the end of the movie where the boy wants to go. There's these two dinosaurs in California.
I know that scene.
Where he drops, the package off for his sister that passed away, and we went to those two dinosaurs. And
that's awesome.
We got to go up and where they shot it and stuff like that. It's very different now. It's almost there's like Burger King and crap now, where back then it was just those two dinosaurs. It was like a playground, right? We got to go there, and for Rob and I, it was very nostalgic, man. It was like, because we saw The Wizard in the theater, man. That's how old we are.
Right.
And, unveiling Mario 3 for the first time, there was nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not really a lot of game publications back then, and so we didn't know. And it's like, holy crap, Mario 3. And so it was important that when we were in California, we went there.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Sweet.
That's
All right.
cool.
I'll be right back 1 second, guys. I'm going to cut my camera just for a moment, but you guys just continue on. I have something my wife is calling me for something. But go ahead, carry on.
So I just want to ask, tell us about your experience with Little Samson.
Little Samson was a game I didn't know a whole lot about until I started this and researching some of the deeper cuts. It's a fantastic game. It's a Mega Man clone. I found it a couple times. I'm not too worried about spoiling my own movie, but when I did acquire Little Samson, I remember I slept with it that night.
Yeah.
And I took it out of my satchel and I slept with it. And Rob's like, "You're an idiot."
I've owned 2 copies. One complete in the box, which I had to sell after I had my kids, but I also had another copy, and it's a pretty crazy feeling when you actually have it in your possession.
And it's a really good game, man.
It is. It's fun, right? It is fun to play.
Like stadium events is not. I mean, it's a grail, but it's not super fun, right? So to have one of those rare games that's really good, I love it. It's a great game.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, as we were talking about Mega Man clones, what are your thoughts on the Mega Man series for the NES? Are you a fan? Are you...
To a certain point, I think beyond 3, it kind of dies off for me, gets diluted.
Okay.
2 is the pinnacle. The soundtrack is godly. Yep. And I think they took all the design flaws out of 1, and they made the levels nice and short. So you could get to the end in like 30 minutes if you want. It's nice and accessible, and the difficulty is a little lower too. 2's my favorite.
Yeah, the Deuce is a big Mega Man 2 guy.
Yeah, I love it. I'm not as good as some of the other people out there on Facebook, but I've got my full run down to about 35 minutes. So
yes. Hey, you know what? And I just want to say, man, good on you for doing speedrunning. There's no class of gamer in this community that I look up to more than a speedrunner. I'm a big fan of guys like Enop, who does the majority.
GDQ is pretty cool. They do stuff for charities and do speed runs. They're awesome too.
And the devotion and dedication it takes to focus on one title, good for you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually learned that one of the other Facebook streamers coached me. I'll give him a shout out. His name is the Retro Runner. He is about 3 minutes faster than I am, and he was teaching me all the little tricks and stuff like that. And are there games like that for you, Jay? Are there games that you have refined down to an art form?
I would say honestly, not to that level. There was a time when I wanted to maybe pursue that with Zelda 2. And I have a really, really bizarre obsession with Majora's Mask, and I can't stop watching speed runs. And I think that game there's nothing like it. It's so fascinating, and I want to be better at it. But Majora's Mask is one of those games that you really have to be in the right mindset to play, because so much is going on at once. You can miss so much. No, I would say not. Maybe in the future.
Next project. That's his next project. Speedrunner.
Jay's speedrunning.
Yeah, there you go.
So Grizzly, you got any questions? You're usually our boy wonder, our boy genius over here. What do you got for us?
Usually I am, but I just don't want to piss off our guest here, so I don't want to say nothing stupid. So I'm just trying to be quiet, man, because it's an honor to have him on our show. So.
You guys are so awesome.
All right.
Dude, honestly, you can ask me anything, man. It's fine, whatever.
Okay, so I'll ask the question. If you have the answer, if you don't, that's great. With all your games, obviously you have all physical copies. What is your entirety collection number of games, master total of games? How many games you actually physically own? That's the question I'm curious about.
If you haven't figured it out, Jay, he's a numbers whore, so you're gonna have to.
Okay. Well, you'll be disappointed because, to be completely honest, I don't know.
So project number 3 then. There we go.
I'll count. I'll do inventory for once. How about that?
Hey, Grizzly B is the group OCD guy. He's the organization guy. He's got the notebook out, checkbox, so.
Oh, I've got all my games in an Excel spreadsheet because I'm just a nerd.
Here we go.
You know what? And that's a very smart thing to do, man. And I should do that, absolutely. I've collected for all systems since I was old enough to work, like I said. So I have all systems.
Well, my wife's like, why do you post pictures of this stuff online and videos and have spreadsheets in your email? And I'm like, our place ever goes up in fire, I've got documentation of all this crap. So, call me a rainy day guy, but point in case yesterday, I got rear-ended in a car wreck. Thank goodness my vehicle's fine, but I'm getting that checked up medical. And they're like, you have all this stuff in a Ziploc bag? The police officer's looking at me like, well, it rains a lot in this state, and for a rainy day, and he's like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "No, that's just how organized I try to be." But this is me.
That's great.
So, okay, I got one for you, Jay. In the film, some of the people spoke to the virtues of retro video games versus modern games. What are some of the things you feel like modern games have lost that retro games have?
Balls.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Difficulty.
I think that
difficult.
too many modern games hold your hand, and you take like a masterpiece like Dark Souls, right? And Dark Souls is not a hard game. Dark Souls just doesn't tell you how to play.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you go into Dark Souls and it's like, go. And you get your butt handed to you by the first guy, and everyone's like, oh, this is impossible. No, it's not. It's just, and when you die in Dark Souls, you are dead. You go back and get your experience or you lose it forever. And I think throughout the years, my example is Halo. It's like you die in Halo and you start like 1 second back. It's like you might as well not even die.
Right.
There's no consequence to it, right? So I would say, yeah, I mean, I liked in Mario, you lost all your lives, you do it again. And that's how you learn.
Well, yeah, I like Mega Man when you learn by trial by fire, not having Navi try to give me a whole documentation just before you even start the game. And I'm like, I'd rather learn by like, hey, well, this platform drops here, and it shows you, and without explaining it to you. There was a YouTuber who did that where, they were actually making fun of it, and it's like, Mega Man, you need to do it. Like, just shut the heck up and let me figure this out. I think that's much better experience, because my buddy, Stephen Mortimer, who used to work for Nintendo of America, now working for Riot Games, basically says the best games are not easy, the most difficult ones, but the ones that don't hold your hand, and the game opens up and basically shows you, if it's like linear, it'll show you how to play it by experiencing it and going through the process.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back to when we were kids and the first time we all booted up Zelda, right? You're just on that first screen, and to get the sword, and then after that, it's like, well, figure it out.
Good luck.
Or dying on the first Goomba or whatever, yeah.
And I saw an interview with Miyamoto once where they had consciously made the decision to not start you out with the sword. You had to go into the cave to get the sword, and then you play the game. I think that mentality is what made those games so great. And kind of calling back to what Grizz just said there a second ago, these games that you learn by doing, that's what makes a game great so much, is it doesn't have something come in and tell you, oh, by the way, and there's a tutorial that flies across the screen.
Let me hold your
But
hand.
instead, it makes you learn by doing it. What are some great games that you think did that really well?
That didn't hold your hand?
That did well at not holding your hand and just by teaching you by doing. Retro or modern?
Zelda 1, I think, is probably the best example. I mean, Super Mario Brothers was just, I guess I can't touch that or I'm dead. It's, let me think. Most of the retro stuff, man.
Link to the Past did a pretty good job of not holding your hand too much. The dialogue was very minimal.
I think when you transition into 3D gaming, it's a little different where you have to have kind of those little cues because there's so much around you now. It's not just one plane, right?
It's not linear. You're more or less in a 3D world looking around that, which you got to go towards.
And even, I mean, let's go back to another one of my favorites is Phantasy Star on the Master System.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Beautiful game.
The game is absolutely, it's gorgeous. I love that game. It's so hard. It is so hard. You have to grind outside the first town for 30 minutes before you can even think about doing anything.
Hey, Jay, just imagine a Sega Master System quest. Can you imagine that?
I got one word. That would be boring.
Now you're bringing up memories of grinding the original EverQuest. Oh my goodness, come on.
Yeah,
one of the great modern or
underrated system, man. Underrated system for sure.
It is. It was more powerful than the NES.
It was, yeah.
Sega really didn't come into their own, in my opinion, to the Genesis, of course. But
correct. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But it's a great. I would love to see a Master System classic. I don't think they'll ever do it, but
no. AC Games is butchered enough. They got to switch up their
If they do it, they need to do it in-house and not do a crapshoot like Sony did with their classic. It needs to be done right, or don't touch it at all.
Yeah.
Well, listen up, guys, real quick. I got a special guest that wants to talk to Jay for a moment, and everyone knows it's their favorite. The Doge. Doge is in the house. Where are you, buddy? Where is the Doge? He should be here in a minute. Where did he go?
Late as usual.
Yeah, he's late. Normal, typical.
It's off sniffing butts. That's what he's doing.
Where's the Doge? Here he comes. Doge is on the screen. You'll see him in a second, Jay. Hey, what's up, Jay? Who's that? Is that Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters? Oh, Dave, I've been waiting for you to go on tour. Oh, can I get tickets to your next show, Dave? Come on. Come on, Dave.
Fuck no, man.
At least they didn't call him Weird Al. I mean, come on. There's a little love there.
Well, anyway, I know it's you, Jay. It's okay. I got a question for you, though. I heard you into rock and roll and stuff like that. So tell me, what's the name of that terrible band that you belong to? Because I want to buy your CD and really excited to hear what you guys play out there.
Nickelback.
Tell me.
Oh, the Canadian band Nickelback? Is that where we're going with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nickelback. Hey, you know what? You know what? Say what you want about Nickelback and how terrible they are. But man, if I could still in this day right now tour and make money from music, God bless those guys, man. God bless.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I want 50 cents and Nickelback to go on a tour together, and they can call it the 45-cent concert. Come on, make it happen. Make it happen.
I'd go see that.
I'll go on a shit quest with you there, Jay. Come on, let's do it. We'll hit every Wednesday. We'll hit every Wednesday. Now you ruined the joke.
Sorry. So tell us about what you're doing. What have you been doing since the film, Jay? What are you doing now? What are you up to? And what's going on with Jay Bartlett? What's going on with everything with you? What, I mean, I know you said that you got something you're working on that's on Sunday, but I mean, what can you give us? I mean, there's got to be something up your side. I know Rob. Rob's always got something in the oven.
Yeah, well, we're starting our next film project on Sunday. We've been writing it for a couple months now. I'm starting my own Star Wars TV show. February 8th it debuts.
Awesome.
So we're doing that. It's kind of like a video podcast with just some dudes talking Star Wars, where we're gonna rotate the guests out. Not scripted, just like this awesome show right here, just dudes talking about Star Wars, right?
Awesome, right.
I'm still playing music, love playing music, and in games, of course. I'm obsessed with playing games every day. That'll never change.
Awesome. And another question, if you had the opportunity to do it again for, say, another system, would you do it?
Oh, 100%. Yep.
Awesome. Good.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yep.
That's good to hear. I like it. I really hope that we'll have another quest down the old rabbit hole here.
Let me ask you guys something now, each of you.
All right.
If you were to pick one system for another project, what do you think would be worthy?
I'll let we'll start off with the Grizz. Let's get with the Grizz in here.
I would have to say, PlayStation 2 has a lot of flipping games for it if you're looking for mass numbers, but I've always been a quantity over a quality over quantity guy, so that would be my take, because it's such a large challenge.
Yeah, and I think the issue that we have when coming up with a sequel is that the NES came out such a time where the industry was destroyed. I blame Atari, but that's fine. And it kind of resurrected the game industry. And out of that, so many games came out, and there was new rules when you were creating games and new laws. And there's just so many amazing tales. Like the Stadium Event story is fantastic. And racking my head, it's just so hard to come up with another system that is like the Nintendo, because it's not just about counting the games and that. It's about what titles have really interesting stories. Does Super Nintendo have an interesting library as an NES? Well, it's debatable, right?
Yeah, well, Nintendo. I mean, granted, Atari was my first console I ever played. Nintendo was my first love, but I would have to say if it was my so-called wife of a console, Super Nintendo was where I really hooked in hard into gaming because that was like my teenage years, Because that I think what was it? Super Nintendo came out in '91. Don't quote me on that. With Mario World, and I was like 11. I'm prime time, into my youth.
I'm just going to come out and I'm going to say I think Sega Genesis would be absolutely incredible because, at least for me, I was the kid. I had Nintendo, and then Super Nintendo came out, and I think for whatever reason, Sega was a little bit cheaper or Sonic came with it. So I actually ended up getting the Sega after Super Nintendo. And a lot of kids that I know had Sega, and there was so many games for the Sega.
Cool game cases, too. I was jealous of that.
Right. The shells are really cool.
That was one thing that Genesis got right that Nintendo never did. And
then 64, no side spines.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think that, I think here's my thing, right? I think everybody expects the Super Nintendo Quest to be next because that's what is expected. I think that, I could just say, oh, Super Nintendo, but to throw a curveball, like I said, the Sega, I think, would be.
It's going to be cool. Tiger handheld games. That's what's going to happen.
Hey, actually,
I would watch that.
Something really super obscure like the N-Gage Quest or perhaps CDI or something like that.
Right.
Now, what was the Atari Lynx? Atari Lynx was fun.
That was cool. The Vectrex, or So the Deuce. How about you, man? What do you think?
I'm going to have to say PlayStation 1. And as you guys have been talking, I've been kind of debating amongst myself, but PlayStation 1 shares with Nintendo, I think, the fact that it was at a revolutionary – it came out and its premier games came out at a revolutionary time within the gaming industry. We were going from 2D side scrollers to the real capability of 3D, and that changed the game. I mean, you look at every game now, and it's modeled after what came out on PlayStation, with the exception of a half a dozen. You don't hear about, even like Stadium Events 12, but there are games that start Resident Evil. You hear about Resident Evil 7. You hear about, Tomb Raider being remade, Final Fantasy 7 being remade, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And I know that's kind of like my go-to game, but the fact of the matter is the PlayStation was there at that time, the industry. So in response to your question, if there were a Quest, and the library for the PlayStation 1 was pretty big.
Yeah.
So you are seeing another challenge there, not just in the size of the library, but again in that story. Because I mean, honestly, when I'm watching Nintendo Quest, I've watched it like 3 times now. I rented it for 2 days and I watched it 3 times in 2 days. I'm gonna have to buy it now. But it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not just watching the story of some guy getting 700 Nintendo games or trying to get 700 Nintendo games. I'm watching the story of you and your relationship to each one of those games. And I think that's where PlayStation could match up nicely with that genre.
Yeah, that's some really good insight, man. Actually, I haven't, when I throw that question out there, I don't really hear PlayStation 1 at all. So that's really cool to hear that. Yeah. I get a lot of obscure ones, like real obscure, like Neo Geo and stuff like that. And I mean, if we want to sell to 0.5% of the gaming market,
right.
Sure. But if we want to appeal to a mass audience, Neo Geo is not going to cut it, right?
No.
How's a Neo Geo? Yes, most people are like, I don't even know what that is, right? So.
Well, yeah, Life Journey makes it more palatable and more memorable to attach beyond just the physical and the time constraint of that. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. How about you, Steve? What do you think, brother?
I know it's been said, but I've got to see Super Nintendo. That's where my heart is, really, and not even just because of the nostalgia for me personally, or even the games, but just some of the crazy peripheral stuff that was made for the Super Nintendo, like the
I miss my
the
Super
Life
Scope
Fitness
6
bike or whatever it's called. just weird, and that's the sort of stuff that I really get a kick out of. Is just really obscure, weird accessories. Like I've got a U-Force over here that, God help me when I try to use that thing, it's horrible. But somebody had an idea and they put it out there. Yeah, it's for me. It's got to be Super Nintendo.
Yeah, the peripherals are a cool thing. I'm sure you guys have seen James Rolfe's video on all the Super Nintendo stuff, right? I mean, that's just a great episode. But yeah, there's a lot of, God bless these companies for trying something different, right? But most of it didn't work. Like the one where you goes on your head or like a voice commands.
Konami, right? Yeah.
The Wii bowling ball that you put your stick into, yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, but
How about you, Brian? What do you think, brother?
For me, listen. I've been a big fan of two systems ever since I was a kid. One was the Sega Master System, so I would love to go towards that, and only because my cousins actually owned that. It was different from Nintendo. It was its rival at that point, but again, it was a much less followed system, unless you were more or less in South America, where it really was prosperous over there. Or I would go towards TurboGrafx 16. And again, it was another system that a friend of mine owned. Totally different. You don't see a lot of those games. The games are great. Yeah. I mean, Ninja Spirits, Bonk's Adventure, Keith Courage in the Alpha Zone. Those are the games that I played a lot more than I played the Super Marios and the Contras and the Castlevanias. It was just those games to me are
the weird games, the weird little things, you know?
Yeah, it was something different.
Go for the Game Boy. Game Boy has a lot of fun nostalgia moments.
Game Boy was fun. I owned that, but
yeah, that's the one thing I'm not a huge fan of. Although I've owned all the portables, I'm not a big portable gamer. I never really. I mean, I got it, but there's only a handful of games I ever really played on portables. So I think it's safe to say you could probably rule the portables out. Maybe, I don't know. To see.
There was a question in chat for Jay. Going back a little bit, Isa Sherman asks, if someone were to start their NES collection, what 5 games are necessary to build the foundation?
Good question.
And I think that's a great question.
Yeah. Disregarding value completely.
Right.
Oh, so games that are must plays on the NES, you mean? Like
someone starting a collection, what 5 games do they need to start with?
You have to have Super Mario 3.
Yep, absolutely.
You have to have Zelda.
Yep.
I believe, I don't know, you guys like Final Fantasy or you Dragon Warrior guys? Like, that's tough.
NES, Dragon Warrior.
Dragon Warrior.
That's
I'm a Dragon Warrior guy.
I would say Final Fantasy, except when you pick the bad guy and he's already dead and your guy loses a turn. I really hated how they did that, but I would say Final Fantasy, Mega Man 2,
yes.
Gun Knack, which is
hell yeah,
Gun Knack's awesome game.
To Blazing Lasers on TurboGrafx. I think Gun Knack is so underrated, right? So those 5.
Chris Dallas was a favorite of mine growing up.
Yeah.
No punch out. No Mike Tyson's punch out.
See, see, yes.
It's hard to restrict it to 5.
You can't break it down to 5. Yeah.
I mean, I got a list of 10 on my phone here. My top 10 NES games. I know I'm going extreme, of course. 10, Tetris. 9, Bubble Bobble. 8, Kirby's Adventure. 7, Little Nemo and the Dream Master. 6, Dragon Warrior 1. Number 5, Mega Man 3. Number 4, Crystallis. That was 4. Sorry, 3, Link 2. Number 2, Metroid. You got to put credit where credit's due. And of course, Mario 3 for number 1. That's my top 10 for NES.
All right, just a list over there. How'd I know you'd have a list for me?
Always, man, always.
It's nice too when you're starting out a collection like that to have one mid-range gem, which I would say Gun Knack would be that. So to answer the question, I would say if you can have a few common games, that's great. But if you have that one rare game, it makes you a little less intimidated jumping into the water because you can show off, hey, I have this one, right? So if you can find a good mid-range rare game like Gun Knack, that's a good start for you.
Hell yeah. All right, so as we're getting close to time here, tell everybody how they can see the film, where they can get the film, and any information about you, upcoming projects, how people can follow you, if you got a Twitter or YouTube, or let's let everybody know, just how they can see Jay Bartlett going forward here.
So Nintendo Quest is on iTunes in the US. It's on an app called Journey, which is all across North America. It's totally free. And Vimeo is worldwide. Nintendo Quest is on there as well. Myself, I primarily communicate on social media through Facebook. So feel free to add me, guys. I talk to fans all the time. I answer everyone's questions. Twitter, NES Club J, because trivia, the original name of the film was called the NES Club before we were advised to change it. Then Instagram, just J_Bartlett.
Awesome. Yeah. Nice. And real quick, I had spoke to Rob a little bit leading up to this, and I just wanted to give a plug for him. He's got a new series coming out, I believe, called Box Art. Maybe you can.
So Box Art is a ongoing series, basically that dives into the artists that created some of the original box art for video games.
See,
It's very cool.
That's cool.
It's an untapped topic you don't see a lot about, but one of the episodes, for instance, is the guy that did all the Konami. So Castlevania 3, Blades of Steel. The story about Blades of Steel, guys, you got to check it out. It's fascinating what happened with that and how that cover came to be. It's just a wonderful series. Our producer Jordan is at the helm with that as well. So
awesome. And that there's a trailer on YouTube, I believe, for the episode. The episodes aren't out yet, right? Or they are out?
I don't believe they're out just yet. It's in the finishing stages. Yeah,
it's about to. It's okay. So that's what he said.
I'm interested. But I haven't heard on that.
Real cool. Check out the trailer. All Rob's work, Jay. You guys absolutely produce great content.
Thanks, man.
I'll tell you now. I backed the film originally, the Nintendo Quest originally. I know it gets mixed reviews. I love the film. It's like I say, as a collector. Watching you, and like I said, we won't spoil it, but watching you go through this journey, it just brought me to certain parts of my life. Obviously, it wasn't in 19 days or anything like that, but I can remember, meeting the mom whose kid's off at college, and she's selling all the stuff in his closet. I can remember meeting the crackhead at 1 o'clock in the morning, picking up, Smash Bros on the N64 for $10, wow, score, I almost got killed just to save $30, so it was just awesome. And I really hope that your next project is another Quest. I hope that, that is what comes out. I'll back it. 100%.
Count me in too. I'll definitely.
I hope we can interview you again after you've done your next project.
Hell yeah! Any way we can plug or do anything for you to help you with your next project, let us know. I'm a huge fan. Everybody here is a huge fan, and we really appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely.
And we just thank you, man. It was really cool. It was a matter. And I'll just tell everybody. It was, hey Jay, how you doing? You want to come on the show? Yeah, no problem, man. You were probably one of the easier guests that we've had, and I really appreciate you coming on and giving us your story, brother.
I've been there when you approach someone and you don't think, they're in the limelight for whatever reason, and I've had my share of people who are not very nice, and honestly, and this is, you guys are gonna laugh, but it's the first time I met Dave Grohl. And we were talking, and he was just like a dude.
Right.
He's no longer the guy in Nirvana anymore, right? He's just this guy in front of me, and there was no ego, there was no rock star stigma. And that really taught me young that if I was ever in that kind of position, that you got to remember that you remember where you came from, and that everyone just wants to talk what you're into too. So I'll be on the show anytime you guys want. And
awesome.
I want to say that this is one of the most professional podcasts or live shows, whatever you guys want to call it, that I've been on. You guys are really nice. You're very respectful, and your communication and your promotion is second to none.
Awesome. And I'll stop you there. All that thanks goes to Brian, Mr. Mysterious.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Yeah, yes, it does. He's our video guy. He puts countless hours into the overlay, everything that goes on here. I know I bust your balls a lot, Brian. I give you a lot of shit
every day,
and I have very high expectations. But I will tell you, you meet all the expectations. And Jay, for you to say that.
Yeah,
that's absolutely awesome,
thank
dude.
You.
And thank
Stole
you.
his ideas from the Doge.
Yes. So again, guys, I want to thank everybody that tuned in tonight. If you have a chance, guys, go check out Nintendo Quest. All right, check it out and be on the lookout because it looks like Big J, he's getting back in the saddle and
Amazon
he's
Prime,
ready to blaze it again. So. As a fan, I'm excited, man. I'm excited, and I can't wait. We got Star Wars coming up this year too.
Woo, bitch.
A lot's going on here. So, have you said, you'd like to come back on in the future? We'll have you on pretty soon.
After episode 9, we got to get him on. After episode 9, get him back on ASAP.
Thank you again, brother, and we thank you, and have a great night, man. Thanks so much.
And don't remember, Jay. You got to take me on the next quest. We got to do it, Jay.
Friend, you got a deal, but you got to pay for your own way.
Jay, come on. You got to do it. Come on. Be my friend. All right, guys. Once again, we are Retro Revolution. This was Breakdown featuring Jay Bartlett of Nintendo Quest. Guys, like I said, like, share, subscribe, be a part of the action here each and every time. I think that's it. Are we ready to go? We call it a day, guys?
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, guys, gonna shoot out. Have yourselves a good one. Wave goodbye to the camera as I fade out.
Thanks again, Jay. We'll see you, brother. Thank you, man.
All right. We're cutting out right now.
All right. Yeah, Jay's gone. We're good. All right. Hey, guys, great show.